coming back to election budget. So goodies, okay, not direct, but they are looking at the upcoming Selangor, Negeri Sembilan. I mean, what do you make of these election budgets? I mean, is it a budget that preserves status quo, meaning we're still going to take care of civil servant, for example? We're going to ensure PTPM people are not forced to pay back that quickly because these are the status quo voters they need.
Well, I think to a certain degree, yes. But I wouldn't say it would be effective to target like the green wave.
So those people, do you feel like, okay, now let's talk about green wave for a while because I think this is something, we saw the green wave, in northern part, in the east coast part. Then, of course, there is a clear demarcation to certain religions, race, but also locality. I think there's a bit of urban, rural kind of divide. But what exactly is green wave? I mean, how would you frame it in terms of what are the demographic of voters they are going for?
Malay Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, these are the group of people who are more attracted to certain theology that is being sold by past.
So do you think it's a more religion-driven?
I would say yes. I think it's more moral standard sort of issues. Because like what Anwar Ibrahim, he alluded that there is corruption issue, there's lack of transparency. So that's why Malaysia's corruption index fell. But then you also have like Hadi that mentioned about, well, I mean, this party might collapse. I mean, this whole government might collapse very, very soon. So I think maybe there's some truth. It will look in between the lines. So maybe what the opponent is suggesting is that you have not really tackled the main issue here, which we are selling to our, I mean, obviously our young voters here. So, I mean, there's certain moral standard because, again, going back to like wokeness, false awakening, there's certain social justice that is felt by, I mean, quote unquote justice that is felt by the young voters. So you're not technically really addressing this whole thing because there is no transparency how you're going to manage this whole handout. Yes, the handout is not being given like directly, like cash handouts, but it's still a handout nonetheless. So maybe it will be appealing to the urban areas, but not quite at the rural areas. So I think there is still that sort of schism that is really appearing.
But it's so interesting, right? That the green wave, I'm talking about the party behind it, Bersatu and PAS and others, they themselves are in the business of handing out. And now they're being investigated for that.
I mean, politicians always talk what they want, right?
So it's like the pot calling the kettle black kind of thing. But here's the thing, and you made a very interesting observation that the wokeness, because remember woke come from, now of course woke has many dimensions, but it really requires a siege mentality that you are being attacked, you are being oppressed. So in America, for example, most of the woke issues are framed from a racial point of view, but actually it can come in any topic. It can be race, it can be religion, it can be climate, and of course it can be the free love, sexual revolution. But coming back here, when you use that kind of siege, that is like, oh, you are a specific race, you're a specific religion, the people outside your sphere are trying to steal from you. I think that's how they stir. I mean, that's the way I see green wave. It's like they are kind of appealing to the emotions, the victim mindset. And that allows, unfortunately, people to not examine facts and reality properly. Because, I mean, if you really do your due diligence, past has been quite corrupted, I would say. Based on the administration of Terengganu and Kelantan. It's like the two worst run state. So kind of remind me of in America, you have New York, you have California. Maybe California is the worst run state.
Yep.
And yet people kept voting for those who are responsible for that. And so today, I don't know if you follow the mayor news in Chicago. You know the ex-mayor, Lightfoot. Lightfoot she's just a terrible woke leader, and she was kicked out. She lost her election because I mean, when you want to disband police and things like that, people are not going to put up with your bullshit for a long time. But that's the thing. I feel like there's that certain emotions. And you know, why are we veering towards woke? Because it kind of link, you know, they're all linked together. And I think this is a good time for us to look at one of the, now there are many issues of reform. It's like if you want to list down the things we need to reform, it's going to be unending, okay? But one of the things I really feel, and maybe we can show this article now. I didn't even know it's called, okay? Efforts to review Akta Sakit Hati. Seriously, I never heard about this until recently, okay? And you know what we're talking about? We're talking about Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act.
Yep.
And this is probably, now by the way, that provision is actually for the misuse of infrastructure, misuse of telecommunication, but it has been used to investigate, charge anything and everything related to people feeling slighted, unhappy. It's like you're racially discriminating me or that kind of thing. So anything and everything, and including recently, remember 2 secondary school students were arrested. And Bar Council today, 1st of March 2023, issued a very strong statement condemning the police and say, yes, what they say was stupid, but they have a right to express their point of view. It's not criminal. And I think we come back to the whole thing about green wave, and of course there are some people, you know, who have the courage, who are very upfront. You know, I think about Miriam Mokhtar and some people, but most people don't really want to touch this issue because of this Akta Sakit Hati or whatever things, or if it's more serious, it will be Sedition Act or whatever. So what do you think of this? You know, freedom of expression, freedom, because we kept talking about, look, welfare state. We don't want it. We want a bit more. We want opportunity for business to be, government to stimulate the businesses. Then of course it's like if we want to take more responsibility, then we should have local election, for example, and all these kind of things are being put at the back burner. And I don't know. I feel like you can't say I just want to deal with bread and butter issue and put all those things because they are all related.
Yep.
So what do you think of this Akta? Okay, maybe we just focus on this one first. Akta Sakit Hati.
Well, I mean, like based on this budget, right? We're going more towards welfare state. But the thing with welfare state, a lot of people don't realize it really is an open door for much bigger government.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have somewhat functioning government, and that requires like a big force to really just clamp down on people. And that really just gives that sort of control, again, back to what we have experienced during COVID time, during the lockdown. So are these truly what people want? So I think that's the first thing that they need to ask. But then going to this Akta Sakit Hati, if you don't have that right to express what you think is correct, who's going to provide that check and balance to the government? I mean, if you can't really, I mean, as citizens, we are the ones who vote for them, but it would look like our job ends as far as voting is concerned. That's it. Like, once you have voted them in, that's it. So for 5 years, you're not allowed to speak. So that, to me, is truly ridiculous because, I mean, we should be the most annoying voter ever to call into a politician and just say, hello, what are you doing? Like, MP, I'm not happy with this. So, but with this act, I think how many people are going to call in, you know? So I think that really is something that definitely needs review, reform.
And especially in the age of, everyone, we're talking about social media, we're talking about technology, with COVID, with all the online learning and things like that. Basically, every person has become like a small independent publisher, and that's what we're doing also. We're able to do what we do because of all the opportunity and paradigm shift that took place during the COVID. So it's not so strange for us to do recording and do live streaming because it's very normal. You have your opinion. But then our legislation, now of course, if interpret strictly, some lawyers even argue these sections, you're not supposed to legislate, you're not supposed to enforce opinion. It's only if you truly created some sort of ruckus or some sort of disturbance. I mean, two boys saying that the exam is crap. It's like you go to YouTube, you go to whatever, you get millions of videos of people ranting and whining. I mean, it's a disruption to society. And I sort of remember Prime Minister Anwar, he didn't say it very directly, but he did say, look, we're not going to do this kind of thing. And I guess from my point of view, this is where the reforming mindset has not been there. I mean, even prior to this budget, he has been quiet. You know, he's been quiet, and his 100 days is almost out. So we kind of do a pre-100 days. I don't think there's much to say, actually. And then his first major public policy is just kind of... Now, let me ask you, do you think maybe they look back at 2018 and there was just this eagerness to ratify ICERT and things like that? And in fact, Hadi Awan again say, oh, it's because of that I went to talk to Muhyiddin, and then we went to talk to UMNO, we decided to bring down. Maybe some truth there, but I think it's mostly bullshit, okay? And I mean, there is more like the unhappy rebels in PKR being taken advantage of. But here's the thing: if we can't even deal, if every time we talk, we have to be like, oh, tiptoeing and make sure your feelings are being taken care of, then I think as a society we can't progress at all.
No.
And this is the thing that I feel Prime Minister needs to now. What some of the things that he has been doing to kind of balance the landscape will be to kind of strengthen East Malaysian entity. Now, mind you, let me remind you that all the East Malaysian politicians, they are in the same gang one and all, because I mean, GPS has been with PM for a long time, but it's just that now they are taking advantage of UMNO's
weakening power.
Temporary or permanent, I don't know, you know. So, but you see, every time you have a power that came down, there is a vacuum. And so this is, in a way, it's good, it's decentralization, but I just feel like Anwar Ibrahim should have been bolder and just say, let's just push for some. Now, not very drastic reform, because, I mean, even you say, like we did some, I mean, Ismail Sabri did some great reform, like Undi 18, which, you know, it is far above anything Anwar has done so far. Now, of course, Sajid Sadiq would say it's his credit, you know, but Sabri get it passed, you know.
Yep.
So I'm talking about this kind of thing where you have a tiny spectrum that everyone can agree, then just push for it. And unfortunately, in the budget and the policy related to budget, I felt Anwar missed the opportunity. Anyway, is there anything else from the budget? I mean, we did talk a little bit about now maybe I think we haven't really expounded this enough. It is again going back to the handout, because there are legitimate people who need that. But if we're going to say, look, handout is going to be the absolute hardcore poor, and so if we don't hand out, it means things like we're going to stop subsidy, for example. What's the alternative? And in your mind, what is the best way to navigate into this in an acceptable way? It's a question of degree, right?
Yeah. I mean...
Well, what would you do? I mean, if suddenly they say, okay, Lyra, we give you the decision-making power.
Well, technically, the Prime Minister has absolute control over Petronas. So one major reform that might really, really help the people, I mean, just the transparency, but also I think the subsidy for the petrol, because obviously you have T20 that are really, really taking advantage of this subsidy of the petrol. So maybe you could have a little bit of reduction in the subsidy, but that might really cause the country to progress forward, because you have definitely more money to spend.
Yeah. But what do you think of, let's say we reduce the subsidy, but some people have rebate, you know, the whole rebate. Like Singapore did that with their GST. So if your household income is below a certain level, you are able to rebate. Now, that is interesting. The rebate is at tax level.
Interesting.
So maybe that could work, for
Yep.
example. But then, of course, let's say the B40 will be like, okay, we had to pay, like, let's say petrol become 5 ringgit per liter, and we get rebate. But in the first place, we're not even taxable. Then the rebate doesn't help us.
Yeah. So I guess there has to have some sort of
It has to help them,
Yeah.
or maybe change into cash
tangible.
voucher.
Yeah.
But this is where the transparency, the executions, it is very weak in Malaysia. Every time you give money to a group of people, it will just disappear. I find it even funny when I say, but it's true, right? You give to anything related to the GLC and it's game over. And by the way, just for the benefit of our audience and listeners, you know that we have not seen the accounting of Petronas like forever. They just recently announced a 25 billion ringgit dividend.
Yep.
Because we don't have enough money. and a few months ago, remember there was this Guan KWAN trust fund. I remember when it first came out, everyone is like, what is Guan? What is Guan? Is that a surname or whatever?
Yeah, Madam Guang.
Yeah, I know. Nasi lemak char kway teow. But it's like, all that we found out at one time, Petronas was forced to. So, as we look at the Petroleum Development Act, Petronas is really like the private special of Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Anytime can just titu.
so these are the kind of thing. Now, I know it takes time, but it just shows like, look, transparency is lacking, and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim should take more action. Now,
Indeed.
I would say he still have time. But running out, are you giving him more time, or are you demanding ratification immediately?
People do deserve second chance.
He's not even 100 days yet.
Yeah, it's not even 100 days yet. That I'll give it to him. But still, for someone who is so eager for the position, we definitely have higher expectation, because that is really what we have been sold during the election time. So if you would just be a little bit bolder, I think you will gain even more support.
Yeah, because he is like a prime minister in waiting for so long already, and really he comes across, based on this budget, as having not thought through what could be done. Now, of course, we say, the mitigating factor already is a unity government. He has many stakeholders to please and satisfy, and he's looking ahead for the state election, and the economic situation is very bad. So those are the things in favor of him. But I agree with you that he has to be a bit bolder in his approach.
Yeah, because just now you mentioned about that there is that vacuum of power. So if he would just really seize that opportunity and seize that moment,
yeah,
he probably will go down as one of the best prime minister. That is the legacy that he would have to
he
fight
has
for
that
himself.
opportunity. One thing I'll say he has done well is really to restore some of the balance of power to East Malaysian states. I think that is good. Maybe not quite enough, but for now, since GPS, GRS are plentifully happy, such word. All right, so I think our time is up. I know this is not a typical budget analysis. We are not accountant, we are not tax agents, we are not economists, but we come from the point of view, we just want the opportunity to do well, and we'll see how it's implemented, and will there be any U-turn? By the way, you know the budget, the government can U-turn anytime.
Yeah.
Just guess that, just do a new practice ruling or whatever.
Yeah, because just thinking about what he said, he wants everyone to be treated equally. So is this budget that reflection?
Yeah. Oh well. So anyway, any concluding thoughts you have?
No. Hopefully hopefully we'll see a major reform.
Okay, so we shall see. And hopefully the next time we come to talk about our Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, it will be a more positive kind of analysis.
Yep.
All right, so that's it for now, and until next time, bye bye.
Bye bye.